Crazy Sea Horror Stories.
The town that never locked its doors. If you drive 3 hours west of Chicago, you'll pass a rusted sign that says, "Welcome to Marrow Creek." Marrow Creek sits between dead cornfields and a slow, brown river that smells like iron. There's one grocery store, one gas station, 2 churches, and a sheriff's office the size of a dentist's waiting room. People didn't lock their doors here. They didn't need to, until the siren stopped. Every night at 10 p.m. the old civil defense siren would howl for exactly 30 seconds. No one remembered why it still ran. The Cold War ended decades ago. The tornado system was modernized, but the siren stayed. It was tradition. Then one night in October it didn't sound. And that's when things began. The night the siren failed, 17-year-old Caleb Turner didn't come home. Caleb wasn't the type to run away. He worked part-time at the grocery store, dated the pastor's daughter, and texted his mom if he'd be 5 minutes late. At 9:58 p.m., he left his friend's house. At 10 p.m., the town waited for the siren. Silence. At 10:12 p.m., Caleb's phone went straight to voicemail. The next morning, they found his truck parked on Old Quarry Road. The engine was still warm, driver's door open, keys inside, headlights on. No blood, no struggle, just deep scratches in the dirt beside the truck, like something heavy had been dragged into the cornfield. Sheriff Daniel Hargrove had worked Marrow Creek for 26 years. He'd seen overdoses, farm accidents, a domestic shooting. He had never seen this. 3 days after Caleb disappeared, a farmer found something caught in his irrigation pump by the river. It was a strip of fabric from Caleb's flannel shirt, wrapped tightly around something else. Hair. Not human. The state lab never gave a clear answer. They called it animal contamination, possibly coyote. But coyotes don't stand upright, and they don't leave footprints shaped like hands. Sheriff Hargrove never released the full report, but someone leaked the 911 call. On the recording, Caleb is breathing heavily. He whispers, "It's walking in the field. It's not on 4 legs. It's not on..." Then screaming, then something else. A second voice, trying to mimic him. After Caleb vanished, the town started locking their doors, but they didn't leave. In small towns, people don't run from problems. They hold meetings. The pastor opened the church basement for nightly gatherings. They prayed. They discussed wildlife patterns. They blamed drugs, but something was wrong. On the 3rd night, the basement lights flickered, and the siren went off. 10 p.m. 30 seconds, but this time it wasn't coming from the tower. It was coming from underground. The sound vibrated through the concrete floor. Children started crying. Then someone noticed the smell. wet earth, rot, like something had been buried beneath them for a very long time. Sheriff Hargrove ordered everyone outside. When they unlocked the storage room at the back of the basement, they found fresh dirt piled against the far wall, and claw marks on the inside. A week later, the Turners received a phone call. Caleb's number. Mrs. Turner answered. At first it was silent, then, "Mom." Relief flooded her. Then he said, "Why didn't you come into the field?" The voice was wrong, too flat, too careful, like someone reading a script. In the background, she heard wind moving through corn and something wet chewing. The line went dead. The call lasted 42 seconds. Police traced it. It came from the old quarry, a place that had been filled in with dirt 30 years earlier after a mining collapse. There were 3 elderly men in town who remembered the quarry incident. Back in 1983, 6 miners disappeared during a cave-in. No bodies were recovered. The official report blamed unstable rock. Unofficially, workers claimed something else. They heard knocking from inside sealed tunnels days after the collapse. But when rescuers dug in, they found nothing. No bodies, no equipment, no bones. Just tunnels that seemed longer than the original blueprints. One of the old men said something strange before he died that sea winter. "We shouldn't have turned it off, it keeps them down." No one understood what it was, until Sheriff Hargrove checked the town records. The siren tower wasn't originally for tornado warnings. It was installed directly above the old quarry shaft. The sound frequency was low, industrial, vibrational, designed to travel underground. On November 3rd, the siren failed again. No wind, no animals, no crickets, total silence. By morning, 6 more people were gone. No broken doors, no blood, just empty beds, and dirt tracked across kitchen floors. The sheriff drove to the quarry alone. He left his dashcam running. The footage was released months later. It shows him walking toward the sealed pit, breathing hard, flashlight shaking. He says, "This is Sheriff Hargrove. If anyone finds this..." The ground shifts, like something large turning over beneath the soil. Then from below, the siren sound. But warped, organic, as if something alive was forcing it out of its throat. The camera falls. The last frame shows a pale, elongated face rising from a crack in the earth. Its mouth opens sideways. And from inside, Caleb's voice screams for help. The town never officially reported mass disappearances. Population sign now reads 1,093. But the math doesn't add up. They replaced the siren tower. Upgraded system, stronger frequency. It runs every night now, 10 p.m., without fail. The people of Marrow Creek say it's tradition. They smile when outsiders ask. They don't mention the tremors under their homes. They don't mention the scratching in the walls. They don't mention how sometimes, if you stand near the cornfields at night, you can hear someone calling your name in your own voice. And if the siren ever stops again, they won't stay in the basement. They'll run. Because now they know the siren wasn't a warning, it was a lid. And something under Marrow Creek is still learning how to speak.
Crazy Sea Horror Stories. If you like these stories, subscribe for more.
The last time the siren went off, I grew up in a town so small it barely deserved a name. One main road, 2 churches, a diner that closed at 9. If you stood at the water tower, you could see the whole place, every house, every streetlight, every secret pretending to be normal. People there like to say nothing ever happens. That's how they survive it. The siren was the only thing that ever interrupted that lie. It wasn't a tornado siren. Not officially. There were no drills, no posted explanations, no dates or schedules. It just went off sometimes. Long, low, mechanical. Like something old struggling to breathe. The first time I remember hearing it, I was 9. My mother froze mid-sentence, turned off the TV and pulled the curtain shut without a word. My father stood in the hallway listening, head slightly tilted, like he was counting something only he could hear. When I asked what it was, my mother said, "Go to your room." When I asked my father later, he said, "Sometimes things need to be reminded where they are." I didn't understand that then. I don't know if I do now. I left town at 18 and didn't look back. College, work, cities loud enough to drown out old memories. I told people I grew up near the river and changed the subject. Then, 12 years later, my mother died. Stroke. Quick. Quiet. The kind of death people call merciful because it doesn't inconvenience them. I came back for the funeral on a Tuesday. Gray sky. No wind. The town looked smaller than I remembered. Like it had been shrinking while I was gone. At the edge of town, the welcome sign was still there. Welcome to Marrow's End population, 3412. Someone had scratched out the last digit. People recognized me, even if I didn't recognize them. That's another thing about small towns. They remember you better than you remember them. They asked polite questions. Where do you live now? How long are you staying? No one asked why I left. At the funeral, the pastor spoke about my mother's kindness, her quiet strength. I noticed he skipped the last 10 years of her life completely. No stories, no specifics, just a neat ending tied with scripture. Afterward, while people ate casseroles and avoided eye contact, I overheard 2 women whispering. Siren's been restless lately. Since before she passed. Thought it might stop after. They went silent when they saw me listening. That night I stayed in my parents' house alone. My father had died years earlier. Heart attack, the kind people don't call merciful. The house smelled like dust and lemon cleaner. Everything exactly where it had always been. My old bedroom still had the same faint crack in the ceiling, shaped like a lightning bolt. I didn't sleep much. At 2:17 a.m. the siren went off. It was louder than I remembered, or maybe the silence around it was heavier. I sat up in bed, heart racing, waiting for something. Instructions. Shouting. Panic. None came. No lights turned on in neighboring houses, no cars started, no dogs barked, just the siren. 3 minutes. Exactly. Then silence again. And in that silence I realized something worse. I could hear footsteps outside, slow, deliberate, circling the house. I stayed frozen until morning. The next day I went looking for answers. Town hall was locked. The library had one computer, and a woman who watched me like I might steal it. I searched local records, old newspapers, anything. There were articles about floods, fires, missing livestock, a few missing people, spread across decades, each case thin and unresolved. What they all had in common was what wasn't mentioned. No siren, not once. I asked the librarian about it. She smiled too fast. Oh, that old thing, emergency system. Haven't used it in years. I told her it went off last night. Her smile faded just enough to notice. Are you sure you weren't dreaming? She didn't wait for an answer. That evening I ran into Caleb Reed at the diner. We'd been friends once, close enough to share cigarettes behind the school gym, close enough to stop talking without explanation. He looked older. Everyone did. Like the town aged people unevenly. You heard it, didn't you? He said, without preamble. The siren. I nodded. He stirred his coffee too long. It's not supposed to go off when outsiders are here. I grew up here. Doesn't matter. You left. That stung more than it should have. I asked him what it meant. He looked around, then leaned closer. Come by the water tower tonight. Midnight. If you still want answers. Then he left money on the table and walked out without touching his food. At 11:58 p.m., I stood beneath the water tower. The town stretched out beneath me, quiet and dark. From up there, I noticed something strange. Certain houses had lights on. The same ones, scattered in a pattern that almost looked intentional. At midnight exactly, the siren did not go off. Instead, the ground vibrated. A low hum, barely audible, like something massive shifting underground. Caleb stepped out from behind the tower. You feel that? He asked. Yes. That means it's close. I asked him what it was. He hesitated. We don't have a word for it. Not a real one. He told me a story then, about the town's founding, about miners digging too deep and finding a chamber that shouldn't have existed, a space that didn't match the maps or the measurements, a space that felt aware. They sealed it, built over it, pretended it never happened. But it didn't forget. It doesn't move, Caleb said. Not the way we do. It reaches, listens, learns the shape of us. So the siren isn't a warning, he said, is a reminder to it. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Caleb didn't. When it goes off, he continued, everyone stays inside. Curtains closed, lights off. We make the town smaller. I thought of my parents, the silence, the rituals no one explained. What happens if someone doesn't? I asked. Caleb looked at the dark patch of woods beyond the last streetlight. They stopped being exactly themselves. The siren went off the next night, earlier than usual. I was awake this time, watching through a crack in the curtains. Across the street, Mrs. Harlan stood in her living room, lights on, staring straight ahead. She didn't move when the siren started, didn't flinch. Slowly she turned her head and looked directly at me. Her eyes were wrong, not glowing, not empty, just focused. Like she finally knew where she was supposed to look. The siren stopped. Mrs. Harlan smiled. The next morning her house was for sale. No one mentioned her. I confronted Caleb again, demanded the truth. He told me the worst part. The town needs it, he said, and it needs us. Every few years someone gets curious, defiant, lonely. Someone who stays out too long, looks too closely, leaves their lights on. The town notices. So the missing people. Not missing, he corrected, repurposed. I left that night, packed my car before sunset. I didn't even go inside the house again. As I drove past the welcome sign, I noticed the population number had changed. 3,411. I crossed the town line. The siren went off behind me, longer than before, and for the first time it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like recognition. I don't talk about Marrow's End anymore, but sometimes, late at night, in cities that should be too far away of, I hear a low mechanical hum beneath the noise, like something counting, learning, and every now and then, I check the lights in my apartment, just to make sure they're all off.
Crazy Sea Horror Stories. If you like these stories, subscribe for more.